Hello everybody, today for you I have an Infernity deck list for the Edison format 2010. The objective of this deck is to get cards out of your hand as fast as you can in order to resolve your powerful Infernity effects. First up, we have 3 Infernity Archfiend. When you draw this card and you have no other cards in your hand, you can reveal and special summon him. When he is special summoned, you can add an Infernity card, any Infernity card, from your deck to your hand. You must have no cards in your hand to resolve that effect as well. So this is extremely powerful. This is kind of the heart of your deck. There's a lot of ways to set up for this that we'll go into as we go into the deck. Next up, we play 1 Infernity Guardian. Infernity Guardian, if you have no cards in your hand, cannot be destroyed by battle or card effect. You're only really playing this card because you really want to have an additional Infernity card to search. His effect isn't bad. And also, you could special summon him off of Infernity Force, which we will talk about in a little bit. Next up is your second best Infernity, Infernity Necromancer. When he's normal summoned, you can change him to defense position, and if you have no cards in your hand, you can select 1 Infernity in your graveyard, except itself, and special summon it. So this card will allow you to get back your Infernity Archfiends, which then could search themselves, so your Infernity Necromancer play effectively turns into a +2. It can go even further than that. If you were to special summon Infernity Necromancer with something like Call the Haunted or Limit Reverse, you could then special summon an Archfiend, search another Necromancer, summon that Necromancer to then special summon another Archfiend from your graveyard. None of these cards are hard once per turn, very powerful. Next up, we have Infernity Force. This card, not really that good of a card, to be honest with you, because your opponent can play around it, and if you searched it, they know you have it. That being said, it is the only back row or settable card that you can search with your Infernity Archfiend, so I do feel it is important to play. Its effect, if your opponent doesn't know you have it and they walk into it, it is quite powerful. Its effect is activate only when an Infernity monster is selected as an attack target while you have no cards in your hand. You can destroy the monster that's attacking and special summon an Infernity from your graveyard. So if you use this and you had an Archfiend in your graveyard, you would be able to special that Archfiend. Archfiend's effect would then trigger, and you would gain lots of advantage. So if your opponent does fail to notice that you have it, you will get a lot of advantage off of it. It's just kind of awkward. Next up, we have Armageddon Knight. You'll be using your Armageddon Knights to set up for your Infernity plays by sending Archfiend and Necromancer to the graveyard, as well as Plague Spreader. Plague Spreader is very important to the strategy. We'll talk about that in a bit. Next up is Dark Grepher. Dark Grepher is probably a little bit better than Armageddon Knight, as it helps you get your hand empty faster. And you will never special summon it because you don't play monsters that are level 5 or higher. Which can become a little awkward when you really need to dump your hand. Next up is Plague Spreader. Now, Plague Spreader is so important to the strategy as it allows you to get cards out of your hand, and it also allows you to set up for Infernity plays. So a lot of times what might happen is you'll do a basic Infernity play where you go Infernity Necromancer into Archfiend, and you won't really have anything else worth searching. Maybe you don't really need a back row, this card's not that good anyway. So you can then use your Plague Spreader to top deck an Infernity Archfiend that you searched off your Infernity Archfiend, which will give you amazing follow-up play, right? So Plague Spreader really is honestly the most important card in this deck. It's the only way you're really going to be able to ensure that your plays are set up for, and it's going to give you a way to actually create value out of all these Infernity pluses you get. Otherwise, the best case scenario with your Infernity cards is you'll summon a Necromancer, special Archfiend, search to trap, right? Which isn't an incredibly strong play. It does put your opponent in an awkward position where they can't really attack your Infernitities. But it's not going to help you get over a board or anything. That's where the Plague Spreader comes in, allowing you access to level 6 Synchros, level 5 Synchros, and even Mistworm as well. Very powerful. Next up is Allure. Allure is a very good card. Get monsters out of your hand, draw your deck, bring control, of course. Foolish Burial. Foolish Burial can be used to either send the plague, kind of awkward, I know, or set up for your Infernity plays. Probably not the strongest way to set up for your plays, but it is necessary. Next up, we have Heavy Storm, MST of course, reinforcing the army, allows you to search your Armageddon or your Dark Grepher, whichever you need. A couple bottomless. Call the Haunted is extremely good in this deck, as you'll be sending your Infernities to the graveyard to set up. This will allow you to trigger their effects. Very good. Next up, we have 2D Prison. And then we have Escape from the Dark Dimension. Now you might be thinking, Mike, why do you play Escape from the Dark Dimension when the only dark monster you play that will be banishing itself is Plague Spreader? Well, I'm doing it because Plague Spreader is that important to the strategy. You will be getting Plague Spreader into play as fast as you can using your Dark Greffers and your Armageddon Knights. And this will give you access to that Plague Spreader a second time, which will be very useful for making more plays. I've seen lists opt to play things like Telekinetic Powerwell and Kraybons and E-Tele. Now, while E-Tele is an extremely powerful card, Powerwell does require setup, which, you know, you could use your Dark Greffers or your Armageddon Knights to help with that setup. But I don't really feel like that's worth it, because you're going to be needing to use your Dark Greffers and stuff to set up for your Infernity Archfiends, so, or your Infernity play. So I don't really think you can afford to be playing cards that require the same kind of setup as your Infernities. Also, I don't really want to be drawing more monsters that aren't going to be helping me set up, like Kraybons. E-Tele obviously would be very good. If I could play one E-Tele, one Kraybons, and just feel okay with that, I might consider doing that. Next up, we have Limit Reverse. Limit Reverse will be used to special summon back your Infernity Necromancers, which you can then use to summon your Infernity Archfiends and then search, effectively turning Limit Reverse into a +2. Not the strongest +2, but it is a +2 nonetheless. You can also use it to bring back Plague Spreader if you don't want to banish your Plague Spreader yet, which is pretty useful. We play one Mirror Force. We play triple Raigeki Break. Raigeki Break is not only going to help you get cards out of your hand, but it's also going to help you create value out of those Infernity Archfiend searches. A lot of the time, you'll do your Infernity play, but that doesn't really create any aggression or removal or anything, especially if your opponent's playing like Monarchs. So having the Raigeki Break to turn that plus into real value is very nice. Of course, we play Solemn Judgment. We play a couple Starlight Roads. This deck is very vulnerable to Heavy Storm and Black Rose plays. In fact, you'll probably lose if it happens to you. You do have to set your whole hand every turn pretty much. So a couple Starlight Roads is necessary. I've seen lists play 3, but if I'm playing through Starlight Road, I think I would just rather play a different deck at that point, let's be honest. Trap Dust Shoot and Torrential, of course. In the side deck, I have a couple other cards worth mentioning. Malicious could be a good addition to this deck with your Dark Grepher. To set for level 8 plays, like Dark End. I opted not to play Malicious because, once again, you know, you can't afford to have cards get stuck in your hand, and this is the kind of card that gets stuck in your hand. No bueno. Another really important thing to mention here is Upstart Goblin. A lot of my earlier lists played 3 Upstart Goblin. It's something I did really enjoy. You can use your Plague Spreader to top deck an Archfiend, right? And then use an Upstart Goblin to draw into that Archfiend in the same turn, which really it turns into a crazy play because you special the Plague Spreader, you special the Archfiend, you search a Necromancer, you're able to synchro into a 6 that gets your Archfiend back in the graveyard. You can then normal your Necromancer, turn to defense, special your Archfiend from the graveyard, and then make another search, which is a very aggressive, powerful play. You're going to end up with a level 6 Synchro, a Necromancer defense, an Archfiend, and a search. So I think the Upstart Goblin really has a lot of potential in this deck. It's something I would like to fit. I opted to cut the Upstarts for another Force and the Escape from Dark Dimension. Maybe I'll put the Upstarts back in the future, experiment with them a little bit more. It could be a lot of fun. Maybe an Upstart would be better than the 3rd Armageddon, perhaps. In the extra deck, we mostly play level 5 Synchros. Level 6 synchros, of course, with the addition of the Gaia Knight and the Urquaza. Very important. We also play the Mistworm, which is another option this deck has. You can make level 8s with double Necromancer Plague, so we do play the Dark End and such. So yeah, guys, I really hope you enjoyed the deck list. This one's a lot of fun to play. You know, Infernities are not at full power yet. They're not the best deck, but I do think it's enjoyable. Give her a go, and have a nice day, guys.